the night the poor veteran bought the boarded-up house. The snow was falling so thick it swallowed the road, the trees, and almost his hope. The house stood at the edge of a forgotten town in the northern United States, its windows sealed with cracked plywood, its roof sagging under years of ice and silence. Everyone said it was a mistake, the kind of mistake only a broken man would make just weeks before Christmas. He stood there in the freezing wind with his old military coat pulled tight, his breath shaking, and his loyal dog pressed against his leg. And in that moment it felt like the world itself was daring him to give up. Before the story goes any further, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in the silent hero and second chances, because stories like this are for anyone who has ever been counted out and kept going anyway. His name was Daniel Carter, a former Army veteran who came home with scars no one could see and memories he could not silence. The war had taken years from him, and the years after the war took even more. Jobs never lasted. Sleep never came easy, and people looked at him like he was already part of the past. The only constant in his life was his dog, Max, a calm, aging shepherd mix he rescued from a shelter on one of his darkest days. Max never asked questions, never judged the shaking hands or the long pauses, and never left Daniel alone when the nights became too heavy. Together, they moved from cheap rentals to colder places, until the last landlord sold the building, and Daniel had nowhere left to go. The boarded-up house was never part of a dream. It was a last option. Daniel found it listed at a price so low it felt like a joke. A forgotten property once owned by a reclusive family that vanished decades ago. The bank wanted it gone before winter caused more damage, and Daniel used every dollar he had saved from odd jobs and disability checks to buy it. When he signed the papers, the clerk looked at him with quiet pity, as if Christmas had already been canceled for him. Daniel did not argue. He was used to that look. The first night inside the house was colder than the snow outside. The power barely worked. The walls breathed frost, and the air smelled of dust and old wood. Daniel laid out a thin mattress near the fireplace, lit a small fire, and wrapped Max in an extra blanket. As the flames flickered, memories crept in, louder than the wind outside. He wondered if he had made the worst mistake of his life. Yet beneath the fear, there was something else, a strange calm that came from finally standing still after years of running. The town noticed him quickly. People drove past slowly, staring at the veteran and his dog hauling broken boards, patching holes, and clearing snow with aching hands. Whispers spread that the house was cursed, that no one stayed there long, that it was foolish to believe anything good could come from it. Daniel heard none of it directly, but he felt in the way eyes followed him, in the silence at the local store, and in the way doors closed just a little faster when he walked by. Days passed, and Christmas lights began to appear on other houses, while Daniel struggled just to keep the pipes from freezing. Max became restless, pacing the halls and sniffing corners as if the house itself was calling him. One evening, as Daniel worked to unjam a rusted door, Max began scratching at the floor near the old staircase, leading down to the basement. The sound echoed strangely, hollow and deep, nothing like solid ground. Daniel ignored it at first, exhausted and sore, but Max would not stop. His behavior changed from curiosity to urgency, whining softly, digging harder. Daniel finally followed the sound and noticed something he had missed before, a thick rug nailed down, hiding what looked like a sealed hatch. The wood beneath was reinforced, far newer than the rest of the floor, as if someone had tried to protect or hide whatever lay below. His hands trembled, not from fear alone, but from the strange feeling that this moment mattered more than he understood. With effort, he pried the hatch open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The basement was unlike anything Daniel expected. Instead of dirt and broken pipes, it opened into a massive reinforced chamber, lit by emergency lights that somehow still worked. The walls were lined with steel lockers, sealed crates, and long shelves stacked with documents wrapped in protective cases. Dust coated everything, but nothing was rotten or ruined. Max stood still at the bottom step, ears alert, tail calm, as if he had finally found what he was searching for. As Daniel explored, the truth began to unfold piece by piece. The house once belonged to a secretive family involved in private wartime logistics, legal but deliberately hidden from public record. The basement was a secure vault, built to withstand disasters. holding assets transferred into trusts that were never claimed. Bonds, rare metals, antique currency, and legal documents tied to corporations that had grown into giants over decades sat untouched, forgotten by time and bureaucracy. The value was staggering. Not just millions, but hundreds of millions, enough to change lives beyond imagination. Daniel did not celebrate. He sat on the cold concrete floor, Max beside him, and cried in silence, not because he was rich, but because for the first time since the war, the universe had not taken something from him. It had given something back. Still, the path forward was not simple. The documents had to be verified, the assets legally claimed, and the truth uncovered. Lawyers, investigators, and officials soon filled the house, the same house people once mocked. News spread quickly, and the town that once whispered now watched in disbelief. Reporters came, but Daniel refused interviews. He wore the same coat, walked Max every morning, and spoke only when necessary. Christmas arrived quietly that year. Snow falling softened before, lights reflecting off freshly repaired windows. Inside, the house was warm, not just with heat, but with purpose. Daniel chose a different kind of wealth. He secured his future, yes, but he also funded veteran housing programs, mental health clinics, and animal rescue shelters across the state. He restored the house not into a mansion of excess, but into a safe place, opening parts of it as a retreat for struggling veterans who needed silence, nature, and understanding more than lectures or pity. Max became a symbol of that space, a reminder that sometimes guidance comes on four legs and never speaks a word. Just before the end of this story, take a moment to comment and tell us where you're watching from and whether you believe loyalty can change destiny, because your words keep stories like this alive. Years later, the boarded-up house was no longer a warning, but a landmark. People came not to stare, but to learn, to heal, and to remember that strength does not always look loud or powerful. Sometimes it looks like a tired man, a loyal dog, a frozen night before Christmas, and a door that only opens when you are brave enough to stay.